Exploring important terminologies. Every field has certain terms that become a major part of the language of that field. So information security and cybersecurity are not different. So the following here, I will write here. Let's open our mousepad here. These are the most common terms, and we will explore them in detail in this lecture. The first is threat. Threat, asset, vulnerability, your exploit, risk, 0 day, hack value, less than. Let's delve into these in more detail. Threat, firstly, I want to talk about. A threat in terms of cybersecurity is something or someone that intends to cause harm to another person or system. Furthermore, we can look at a threat as something that has the potential to cause malicious damage to the system, network, or person. System, network, or person. So whether you are on the offensive or defensive side of cybersecurity, you must always be able to identify threats. However, while we need to be aware of threats, we also need to know what has to protect it against threats. So we call the entity in need of safeguarding an asset. So let's look at what constitutes is assets. Assets in terms of cybersecurity are systems within a network that can be interacted with and potentially expose the network or organization to weakness that could be exploited and give hackers a way to escalate their privileges from standard user access to administrator almost root level access or gain remote access on the network. It's important to mention that assets are not and should not be limited to technical systems. Other forms of assets include humans, physical security controls, and even data that resides within the networks who we aim to protect. Assets can be broken down into three categories here: tangible, intangible, and employees. Tangible assets. These are the physical things such as networking devices, computer systems, and applications. Intangible, these are things that are not a physical form such as intellectual property, business plans, data, and records. Employees, these are the people who drive the businesses or organizations. So human rights, one of the most vulnerable entities in the field of cybersecurity. One of the key setup in vulnerability assessment and risk management is to identify all the assets within an organization. So all organizations have assets that need to keep safe. So an organization's systems, networks, and assets always contain some sort of security weakness that can be taken advantage of by a hacker. Next, we will dive into understanding what a vulnerability is. A vulnerability is a weakness or defect that exists within technical, physical, or human systems that hackers can exploit in order to gain access to or control over systems within a network. Common vulnerabilities that exist within organizations includes human error, the greatest of vulnerabilities on a global scale. So web application injections, web application injection vulnerabilities, and the oldest vulnerability is the buffer overflow. Now that we know what vulnerability is, let's take a look at what is used by a hacker to take advantage of a security weakness in the next phase of our lecture here. Exploit. Exploit attacks are the ways hackers take advantage of weaknesses or vulnerabilities within systems. For example, take a hammer, a piece of wood, and a nail. So, hammer, a piece of wood, and a nail. The vulnerability is the soft, permeable nature of wood, and the exploit is the act of hammering the nail into the wood. As a cybersecurity professional, you must understand vulnerabilities and exploits to reduce the likelihood of being compromised. So in the next here we will discuss risk. Risk is the potential impact that a vulnerability, threat, or assets, vulnerability, threat, or asset presents to an organization calculated against all other vulnerabilities, threats, and assets. Evaluating risk helps to determine the likelihood of a specific issue causing a data breach that will cause harm to an organization's finances, reputation, or regulatory compliance. Reducing risk is critical for many organizations. There are many certifications, standards, and frameworks that are designed to help companies understand, identify, and reduce risks. Later in the penetration testing methodologies section of our course here, we will cover such standards and frameworks. Next, we will look at threats that companies do not know about because no one has identified them yet. There are zero-day attacks. A zero-day attack is an exploit that is unknown to the world, including the vendor, which means it is unpatched by the vendor. So these attacks are commonly used in nation-state attacks, so as well as by large criminal organizations. So the discovery of zero-day exploit can be very valuable for ethical hackers and can earn them a bug bounty. So these bounties are fees paid by vendors to security researchers that discover previously unknown vulnerabilities in their applications. Today, many organizations have established a bug bounty program, which allows interested persons who discover a vulnerability within a system of a vendor to report it. So the person who reports a vulnerability, usually a zero-day flaw, is given a reward. So, however, there are hackers who intentionally attempt to exploit a system or network for some sort of personal gain. So this is known as the hack value, which we will explore next. Lastly, hack value. The hack value is commonly referred to as the motivation or the reason for performing a hack on the system or network. It is the value of accomplishing the goal of breaking into a system. You are now able to better describe the terminology used in penetration testing. In the next lectures, we will look at each phase of penetration test.